The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're coming to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. The date is Thursday, May 9th. We're thrilled to be here. By the way, we're in the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, and this is the home for Autism Live. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and we're thrilled to cohabitate with them. I want you to know that part of the reason why we are here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, I'm a proud autism mom. My son was diagnosed at the age of 2.5, and I'm so lucky because right after his 3rd birthday, we started services at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and oh, how many ways has that changed my life? So many. The smallest of which is me here in their space hosting a show with you. So imagine that. The biggest ways that they've changed my life are with my son and giving him the ability to do all the things that he wants to do. So that's why I'm so passionate about helping you to get to the things that you need and want. I can tell you that it's not one size fits all. I know that for sure, and I bet you know that too. But I want to help you to get to the things that you need. So this entire show is meant to be interactive. We want to hear from you about the things you need, the questions you have, the concerns that you have. So Traven is going to show you, the fabulous Traven is going to show you some of the different ways that you can connect with us. And while he does that, I want to remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, so many things to do. At the top, it's a brand new website. At the top of the page, it says, when we're live, it says live, and there's a little red button. Now, on most search engines, you're going to need to click on that so that it will open up and you'll be able to watch the live show. Some search engines, it automatically pops up live. Now, the chat feature, the live feature that we used to have that was side by side, now it's at the bottom so that you can get more viewing space, because a lot of times we're showing you information that you might want to get a better look at. So, but you can still chat with us from there. We've actually expanded it a little bit so you get more characters, and it's totally free. It's totally anonymous. All you have to do is push the chat button. A box pops up. You type whatever you want. It sends it off to a place where I can see it in real time. A little bit delayed, like I think there's a 1 to 2 minute delay on that, right? So ask your questions if we have a guest on early and often, you know? That helps. But we try to get to as many of the questions as you guys send as possible. We're never going to get to all of them, and I apologize, but be persistent. It's a good skill to build, and when you're persistent, when I see that a question has come in more than one way or from more than one avenue, I'm like, ooh, this is somebody who's on it. I'm going to try to get this question answered. Okay? And by the way, you can always, if you have more to say than will fit on the live feature, and you can type something on Facebook, you can type it on YouTube, but you don't get that anonymity that you get when you send us something on the live feature. But if it's not big enough for you, please feel free to email me directly there. Look at the timing on that, Traven. s.penrod@autism-live.com. I want to remind all of you that you can be watching us on YouTube or watching or listening. You can watch on YouTube, of course, but you can listen or watch on iTunes. It's a free download if you want to take us in the car. So for those of you listening in the car, it's S as in Sam dot, like the little period, and then Penrod, which is P as in Peter, E as in egg, N as in Nancy, R as in robot, O as in Oscar, D as in dog, at autism, I'm pretty sure you know how to spell that, hyphen, which is the dash in the middle, right? live, L as in lollipop, I as in igloo, V as in Victor, and E as in egg.com. So that, my friends, is the name of that tune. So feel free to email me about that or anything else, and I look forward to hearing from you. Because you know what I always say here, we have to all be together. You need somebody to hold your hand. I need somebody to hold mine. We hold hands. Si se puede. We can do this. Yes, we can. All righty. I do like to remind you at the start of the show that whenever I can, whenever I have time, that we have many experts that are on the show, and I'm really excited about the expert that we have a little bit later on the show because we've never had her on the show before. How have we managed to do that? But don't confuse me with the experts. I am not an expert in the field of autism. In fact, I would go so far as to say I'm not an expert at anything. Now, that doesn't mean that I know nothing, right? I like to say that I have an informed opinion. I've been covering autism for over 10 years now from a journalistic point of view with a show about autism. But I've been an autism mom longer than that, right? So I have an informed opinion, but that's all it is. I'm not an expert. But I'll tell you what I do have is a huge desire to help you to get to whatever you need to get to. I made a deal on my bedroom floor 14 years ago when I was rocking and praying and saying, please help me to help my child. Please show me what to do, make it clear, because sometimes I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, right? I miss things. And I promise you, if you help me to help my child, I will turn around and help who I can. And that help showed up within 12 hours. With 12 hours later, see, I get chills every time I think about it. 12 hours after I prayed that, I found myself in a home my job sent me to, and I was there, and they disclosed to me that they had a child with autism who used to not speak, and now he speaks. And they said, you got to know about this place. It's just 30 miles down the road from here. It's the world headquarters for a place called CARD, and miracles happen there. That's what that dad told me. And yeah, my life changed. So I made a deal. Help me, make it clear, show me what to do, I'll do it. And then if you help me help my child, I will help whoever I can. So I'm here, y'all. I'm here, and I have a need to help you to get what you want to get to. And like I said, one size does not fit all, so it's going to be different for everybody. So you got to tell me what you need help chasing down, and I will do my level best. I'm human, and I don't have a superhero cape, but I will do my level best, and I will be with you wanting what you need. And that goes for the whole of the autism community, whether you are a parent, a teacher, a practitioner, or you yourself are the person who's on the autism spectrum. We are a big community. We can accomplish a lot. Si se puede, right? Okay. Having said all that, we like to start Thursday mornings with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what in the hey nani are those experts talking about. We give you the actual definition, and then we like to make fun of it whenever possible, because really, what else can you do with it? Then we give you a working definition, which hopefully will help you to access a beginning knowledge of what this thing is and what it means to you and how it's going to save you time and money. Don't be dismayed if you don't get it the first time. Almost none of us get it the first time. That's why we cycle through some of these terms. Okay, so today's jargon term is DTT. Woo! Can't you hear right? What? What is DTT? Okay, so let's take a look at what our actual definition is. DTT is discrete trial teaching, training that focuses on a single cycle of behaviorally based instruction routine. Okay, what? What does that mean? And here's one of my pet peeves, is that people who don't understand what DTT is use it interchangeably with ABA, and that makes me break out into hives. Okay, so let's take a look now, since this discrete trial, I don't even know what a discrete trial is, And then training that focuses on a single cycle of behavioral-based instruction routine? What? All right, so let's get rid of that, wipe that from our memory, and let's move on to our working definition. DTT is teaching one targeted behavior at a time. Okay, and until you know what a targeted behavior is, that's a little like, what? But think about it this way. If you were going to, okay, here's a great example. I'm a crazy person and I miss being in dance classes, but I'm not ready to go to a dance class. But there are dance videos that are online and they're so exciting and they're so fun and they're, these great choreographers. And there's this great one, Kyle Hanagami, The Shape of You. Oh my gosh, have you seen this dance? And the dancers are all young and they're doing all these moves and I'm just like, oh, I want to learn how to do that, right? And I've been watching this for 6 months and I can't get it. You know why? Because it all flies by so fast that I can't get it. I'm not a dancer. And so I can't get this thing. And all I want is somebody, and there are several tutorials, but even then they fly by it so fast. Nobody does a tutorial where they say, okay, I'm going to teach you the first move. The first move is this, and you do this with your hands and you do this with your feet. And then let's do it again. You do this with your hands and you do this with your feet. This is what I want. This is the only way that this elderly woman who does not dance is going to get this dance. This is what we do with DTT. Instead of doing the whole big thing, because it flies by and you don't really get it, you stop and you go, let's just learn this hand movement. DTT is exactly that with all the things that you would want to teach a child. So, language, when we have a typically developing child, language just sort of comes. But it comes over a period of time, right? There's a TED Talk where this scientist talks about developing language, and the university where he studies, his wife was pregnant with a baby and they set up cameras all over the house to record the first 2 years of this child's life, every single moment. And he's a scientist and his wife agreed to it. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, they did it, and then they took one word that the child learned how to say, water, and they took all of the little moments in which the child was attempting to learn and all the moments that the child heard the term water, and they spliced it all together. It's like 37 seconds long, and you hear the child going, wah, 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 water, water, wah, 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 until you get to the place where the child says water. And it's kind of amazing to see the development of that. That's a typical developing child. They get it, but they can't do it, so they do an approximation, and then they try again, and they get lots of trials until they get to the point where they get it, right? For our kids on the spectrum, that's not reinforcing to them. So they do other things to get the water because it's not happening for them in that really organic way. You know how some people just can dance, right? And others have to learn it step by step. So our kids need to learn things, they need to start learning them step by step. So we will take one behavior and teach it to the child and give them opportunities to learn it, help them, will shape the behavior, and really it's like taking a slice out of time and saying, we're just gonna move this one thing over here, we're gonna isolate it, and we're just gonna work on that, just like the dance move, right? So the problem is that a lot of people think that DTT and ABA are the same thing, because a lot of times when you go, what is ABA? And you Google it and a video comes up and it shows a teacher sitting there at a table with a child and the teacher saying, touch car. And the child touches the car and the teacher marks off and goes, yay, good job, touch car. And you go, what is that? That looks ridiculous, right? That's DTT, okay? And DTT is a part of ABA. It's a small part, it's an important part, but it's not the whole thing. I like to use the analogy, think of a car, right? Car has lots of parts to it, right? And one of the pieces that's pretty essential is a steering wheel. You wouldn't want to say, hey, I'm going to go to Las Vegas. I'm taking my car, but I'm not taking the steering wheel. I'm just going to be wild and crazy and not take the steering wheel, right? That would not be a smart idea. But you wouldn't ever say, I'm going to Vegas and I'm just taking my steering wheel, hoping I get there sometime soon. Not going to get you there, right? DTT is the steering wheel of the car that is ABA. If all you ever do is DTT, you're not going to get where you need to go. You just aren't. So you start teaching something, it's just like teaching the dance move, right? If all I ever learn is this, and then I learn this motion over here, and I learn to do my feet over here, but I can't put it all together, and then I can't get it to the beat, and I can't figure out how to personalize it, and I can't make it my own, then I'm only learning one move, right? So the beginning of learning the dance is, okay, this is what this movement is. And this is what now I gotta put these two movements together. Now I gotta put them together with music. And now I gotta put them together and not be thinking like I am moving my hands like this. This is how we begin to work on skills with a child. DTT, and then we put it all together with ABA. Make sense? So DTT, important. It's the stuff that looks weird, because if you paid money to go see a dance recital and people were like this and then applause and this, you would go, what's happening, right? Same thing with DTT and ABA. I'm really happy that I shared the Kyle Hanagami Shape of You. Google it, it's really good. All right, you guys, so that's our jargon for today. Moving on, we have a question of the day. Our question today, wait for it. What fears do you have about ABA? You know, I didn't have the opportunity to start ABA right away when my son was diagnosed with autism, partially because the developmental pediatrician that diagnosed him, when I said, what should we do, her brilliant advice was take him home and enjoy him. And I had bite marks all over my arms. Take him home and enjoy him. And I had done a little bit of Googling before the appointment, and I said, what about ABA? And she said, oh, promise me you won't do that. And she filled my head with a bunch of mistruths about the current state of ABA and what happens. She was telling me about things that were 30 years old. And, you know, I always believe that we should talk about those things, because if you spend any time in the autism community, you will read those things online. You will read about basically what they call it as aversives, that there was a period of time when they began using ABA because ABA is a huge science, right? Not just used for autism. And it encompasses a lot of different things. But part of that is using rewards. And in typical ABA, there is the potential to use what they call aversives. Although in the practice of ABA globally, I don't think they do anymore. But way back when they were doing research and saying what really motivates a living organism to do something, right? We live in a very punishment driven society where, you know, if you do something good, you might get rewarded, but if you do something bad, you're likely to get some sort of a negative response, right? So they did research on aversives with ABA. And I think that modern parents, certainly me, and a lot of people on the autism spectrum feel that that was torture. And that is what my developmental pediatrician told me would happen, was that my child would be tortured. I've read stories, I've heard people who said that they had their hands taped so that they wouldn't do this. There's a place in upstate New York called the Judge Rottenberg Center where they do electric shocks for children who are not behaving in the way that they want to. I personally think that that is horrible. And I don't know a single person who practices ABA with children who doesn't agree with me. But I need you to understand that there is some truth to the fact that ABA used to do that. That was investigated. There are adults who are on the autism spectrum who tell their stories, and I support them in telling their stories. What I need you to understand, and what I needed to come to understand, is that modern ABA, quality ABA, doesn't do that. That is not a part of what they do. It's very much a reinforcement structure. How do we help a child to realize that when you do this, great things happen? That is the truth of ABA. I know there's a lot of parents out there who think, oh no, you know, if I do ABA with my child, will they speak to me later on? And I have to tell you, I have a child who went through 5 years of intensive ABA, but I also interview people on the spectrum all the time. I interview parents and I interview kids on the spectrum and kids who have done ABA. And for anybody that has had ABA in the last, I'm going to say, 20 years, I have not heard anything other than I don't have a whole lot of memory about that time, but I'm so grateful that my parents did what they needed to do so that I'm able to do what I can do now. That's the story I hear. I have not heard anything else. But you need to investigate for yourself. You need to not just take my word for it. I'm just asking you to investigate what's happening now. Please take a look at what happened before to know where we never want to go again. But my personal experience and everything that I have seen is that good quality ABA is very positive for our kids. I see that in my son every day of the week and sometimes 2 and 3 times a day. But it's important that you get quality ABA, and it's important that you make sure at every step of the way that you're watching your ABA provider and checking. We talked the other day about generalization and how, boy, if they're not planning for generalization, that's not quality ABA, right? There's going to be times when your child's going to be frustrated, but if your child is always unhappy when ABA is happening, that's something you have to look at, because it should not be that way. There were days where my son got frustrated. There were days that he cried, right? And he tells me now, Mom, that was just me being frustrated, right? But most of the time, doorbell would ring and my son would be like, Peter's here, Peter, he would say. And he would be so excited that these people were coming to play with him and that he was going to learn stuff, and he would run to open the door, right? That's what you want. That's the kind of ABA that you want. And I hear all the time now with Centerbase that I will hear from parents, oh my gosh, she's so excited to go. Oh, she was like, do I get to go today? That's what we got to get to, right? Okay, so that's, please write in and tell us what your fears are, because I'd like to help you to figure out if they're based in reality. Because what's our topic of the week? Dun, da, da, da. I want to wait for the graphic. It is fear, because sometimes fear is false evidence appearing real. When that pediatrician said to me, I don't think you should do ABA with this child, it's really, it's not going to be good for him. And I went and Googled it, and I saw stories of people telling their story from 30 years ago, and I was like, we're not doing it. I lost 6 months. And if you don't think I grieved that 6 months, even as great as my son is doing now, I kicked myself about that 6 months, right? I know you get it. But one of these days I'm going to put that hot rock down. So please, I think it's always best when we're feeling fear to take it, put it under a spotlight and go, what's going on? What do we have control of? What can we find out? Is this real, or does it just feel? Because your feelings are important. We're not trying to negate them. How do you feel about it, but what's really happening? I'm afraid on a plane. I am. But I have to ask myself, is everything okay right now? Am I safe? Is everything seem to be? I am. And then I can ease back on the fear, right? Not make it go away, ease back on it. Okay, we've got a big show for you here today. And as I said before, we are welcoming for the first time an expert that I cannot believe we have not had her on the show before, partially because she's so busy. But, we should have overcome that. But we have today, so that's the good news. So Theresa Contreras is going to be joining us in just a minute with some of the questions that you guys have sent in. There's a lovely picture of Theresa. And Theresa is an amazing person at CARD. We're going to talk a little bit about what she does, but I see how much everybody respects her, and how when there's a question about something, how a lot of people are like, the person I want to ask is Theresa. So we're really hitting the mothership here. So we're going to take a break, and plus, which a little bit later on in the program, We're going to catch up on some questions that you guys have sent in that I haven't had a chance to get to, that are questions that I can answer. So we got a lot going on, and we're going to have our mindfulness moment today. And I got to recap for you where I was last Thursday and Friday, because it was all about mindfulness. So stick with us. We're going to be right back with Theresa Contreras.
Hey, I'm Candace Cameron Bray.
Tom Bergeron.
You're watching Autism Live.
You're watching Autism Live.
And you're watching Autism Live.
You're watching Autism Live.
Do you provide care services to someone with autism? Recently, more and more children are being diagnosed with the condition and getting the support they need as awareness grows. But what happens to these children as they grow up? It's estimated that over 500,000 youth with autism will turn 18 in the next decade, and they'll be faced with a very difficult reality. As children with autism grow up, their services start to disappear or become very difficult to access. Things like medical care, mental health counseling, vocational training, and more. All services that are still desperately needed. The loss of support that youth with autism face as they grow up is so severe that it's referred to in the autism community as falling off a cliff. Adults with autism need the same level of support they had as children to avoid falling off the services cliff. Introducing Skills Living, the web-based software designed specifically to help transitioning youth and adults with autism so they can avoid the cliff and instead fly to success. With Skills Living, help your learner with autism develop the skills they need in all the critical areas of adult life, including self-control, planning, and problem-solving, effective communication, performing life skill tasks for independent living, acquiring and maintaining employment or other meaningful activities, developing and maintaining social skills and relationships, accessing transportation and public services, and being safe. Skills Living includes a comprehensive assessment, a data collection mobile app, behavior intervention plan builder, and automatic progress reporting. It also provides a complete curriculum addressing 16 key areas spanning the entire range of functioning adulthood. Skills Living is easy to use and can be implemented by schools, parents, and autism service providers. Call or click today for your free demo and see how Skills Living can help your learner with autism avoid the cliff and instead reach their fullest potential. Skills Living. Wish, learn, become.
Welcome back. We are, as I mentioned before, so thrilled. This is the first time that we are having Theresa Contreras on the show with us, and I am just tickled pink to have her with us. Theresa, welcome. Hi.
Me.
You look so beautiful. And Theresa, tell us what your role is at CARD.
I am the director of supervisor training.
So for all of those people that are helping to make the plan and helping all of our kiddos, you're sort of like the wizard behind the curtain, making sure that they get trained to be able to do that. That's a wonderful thing. And we thank you for, how long have you been at CARD? Because you've been here for a while.
Yeah, this is going to be my 23rd year.
23rd.
I started out as a therapist.
Wow.
A long time ago. Yep.
Wow. And it just said on the screen that you're an LMFT, are you?
Yes.
I did not know that, Theresa.
Yes, I am.
Well, that makes a lot more sense, too, in terms of, I know that everybody runs to you. I said it's like we're having the mothership on, because I know everybody runs to you with questions at CARD, and you are like a grandmother. I don't mean like a grandmother, but you're like a super uber mother here at CARD. Didn't mean to imply grandmother, because you're way too young.
Not yet. Yeah. At CARD I am, with all the 20-year-old therapists.
Well, you're very respected, so that's a wonderful thing. So we've got a couple of questions here for you. I'm going to start with the first one. My son is in the 2nd grade. He has been doing ABA since he was 3. Recently, he started this new thing where he spits on his desk and then he draws pictures in the spit. He never did this before, but it's like he's obsessed with it now. How can I make it stop when I'm not even at school?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's hard to control when you're not there, and I'm sure you as the mom in this situation would like to just be able to kind of undo that behavior. And I'm wondering too, just a few things. You said he's been in ABA since he was 3, which is a great thing. Kudos to you for getting everything started so early. And I think that, hopefully, since you're saying he's been in ABA since he's 3, you have a BCBA in or a licensed clinician in your child's program and in your family's life who could, help identify. But the first thing I kind of thought of with this question is, ultimately we need to figure out why he is enjoying it so much. And I say enjoying it because you had said he seems to be obsessed with it now, which that makes me think, well, he must like it a lot. So I would say that we need to figure out what he enjoys so much about it. Kind of encouraging that he's drawing pictures. That might be something when you're looking at replacing the behavior itself. I mean, as simple as if he draws in other places, maybe even having a tablet at his desk. So the function of the behavior, we need to meet that function and then essentially get him to replace that so that it's more appropriate. Because obviously drawing on his desk, you have lots of issues as far as hygiene, not very sanitary, and during a time where he could get sick and all of that, that's not a good thing for him to keep doing. So I would focus on, like I said, identifying the function of the behavior. Maybe he could have a tablet at his desk that he could draw with markers, but ultimately if he's using his finger with the spit for a reason, meaning for some reason maybe he enjoys the tactile feeling of the spit on a hard, cool surface, you want to look at that as what you need to compete with. So my first thought, and I've done this a lot with kids, and I don't know what type of classroom he's in. That makes a big part of the plan as you get the BCBA or licensed clinician involved that knows him, is like, well, I've done a lot with art centers and maybe even tactile sensory-based centers where they can do the shaving cream on a hard surface and draw pictures in it. So if it's not about actually the spit coming out of his mouth and it's more about the feeling of that wet consistency on a hard, cool surface, I would go that direction and just try to get him to know when he can access it. And if it's an enjoyable thing, incorporating it in as reinforcement for doing the right thing throughout the day. So that's pretty much my answer to that one, Shannon.
I love it because I think a lot of times people misunderstand and think, well, I just want that behavior to go away. And they forget that that behavior is serving a purpose. And we can't just make behaviors go away. We need to replace them with something that makes more sense. And if we don't know what the thing is that they're getting out of it, we could replace it with the wrong thing, so knowing, as you said, the function of the behavior, knowing why that behavior is happening is going to be key to figuring out what is going to help. And I love that you recommended that they have the BCBA that is in the school take a look at it so that they can figure out what the function is. And I just want to say too that we talk about skills here on the program, and you guys can access skills at home. Go to skillsforautism.com, and there's the BIP builder in there, and you can, it gives you something called the CFO, which helps you to figure out what the function of the behavior is and what might help as well. So using that alongside of what Theresa has just said to you, perfect advice, Theresa. I think that's super fabulous and great way of looking at it. And speaking of skills, our next question has to do with skills. Somebody wrote in and said, I'm a parent using skills. I live in Tennessee, the last state to not have a mandate. Thank goodness for skills. I want to teach my son about other people's feelings. The other day, his sister fell off her bike and he laughed. What lesson in skills addresses that?
Well, skills is an immense tool as I'm sure this parent knows who's already delving into it herself. So the first thing I would recommend, I mean, one thing I kind of noticed is that we don't know necessarily how old this individual is, but at the same point, I would start at the basics of emotions, which is in the cognition curriculum and skills. So you can find that. And emotions starts at a lower level, but by the time you get down a little bit further into it, which I was actually pulling it up to make sure that this individual, if they are listening, could find it. So if you're in the cognition curriculum under emotions, which starts out as a level 4, assuming that he's able to identify the basic emotions, once it gets down to activity 16, it starts talking about the causal identification of emotions, which then makes you kind of understand that they need to understand cause and effect too. Basically that, you know, the lights turn off. Why did the lights turn off? Because you pushed the button, kind of an idea, or you turned off the switch. Or why is it dark in here? Because the lights turned off. Those sort of concepts. So I would start out in emotions, maybe a higher level. And then I also would recommend you look into, the reason I'm looking away from the camera right now is because I'm actually looking in skills as I'm answering this to be as specific as possible. But the social curriculum, if you look in there, there's one that on level 2 is social referencing. And if you look down a bit, it talks about changing behavior in response to emotional expression. So I feel like sometimes our kids it's like misinterpreted. Like when I see a kid who's laughing at response to an emotion, like his sister falling off a bike, I don't think that he's laughing at her. I think that he or she is possibly responding to just kind of that there is a strong emotion and they're not really sure what to do. So that SD and social changing behavior in response to emotional expression might help out. It's activity 7. And then I think it's also just going to come down to some practice. So when I start using skills and looking at which lessons to pick, I think about how I'm going to do it. Do you want to talk about, okay, so when this happens, how is she feeling? Sad, and then kind of that problem solving, even of like, okay, well, what could you do? Can I give her a hug? Can I ask her how she's doing? A lot of this depends on obviously their interverbal ability to respond to questions like that. But between those 2 lessons, I feel like that's the starting point, and then you can delve further into the cognition curriculum too for the response to those emotionally charged situations. I think our kids, and that's just kind of a gross overgeneralization, but I think kids or people that are diagnosed on the autism spectrum have a hard time knowing what to do with it, and they're not necessarily cueing in to the fact that someone might be hurt or not feeling right. They just have that automatic response of, I don't know what to do with it, and they start laughing. So yeah, for the people that are onlooking that situation, they don't understand why. At the same point, I think we just need to spend some time teaching and breaking down the subtleties of those interactions and then practicing it. So looking at pictures in books, streaming YouTube videos of people getting hurt, identifying why they got hurt, and then what to do in those situations. Like maybe he would actually need a more concrete action of like, hey, do you need a Band-Aid? Do you want me to go call mom? Or, you know, what can he do? Can I give you a hug? A concrete response to that or action might actually help him navigate those stronger emotional situations too. That's That's my response to that one, Shannon.
Okay, that's wonderful. I really appreciate that. And then our last question for you. I'm a teacher with a 16-year-old boy in my classroom who's on the spectrum. He's very smart, and I'm excited to have had him in my class all year. My question is, what can I do to help him when he's having too much sensory input? I see that as the day goes on, he has a harder time coping with all of the noises of our bell system, the other kids, etc. He looks like he's physically in pain. I've asked Mom if I can give him a break and send him to the library, but she doesn't want him to be removed from instruction. Is there anything I can do? I should say it isn't just noise, it's light too. We've got a lot of kids that have these sensory issues, right?
Yeah, a lot of input, and I guess it's not even just people on the autism spectrum. If you knew what my office looks like right now, I turned off the lights for this and coming on here today because I don't like fluorescent lighting. And it starts causing me, after around the hour, 2 hour mark of having it on, I'll start to get like a slight headache. So I have a lot of empathy and compassion for individuals that can't tell people that and say, hey, fluorescent lights does this to me and I need them off, or I need some replacement bulbs. And I think ultimately that would be my recommendation for this teacher, is that, first of all, thank you for being a passionate teacher and bringing this question to us today. It means you care a lot about this individual. And then I also have a lot of, respect for what this mom says too. Like, she doesn't want him to be outside of the classroom and be away from what he needs to do on the day-to-day. So working with consultants in the area of, I would say, an occupational therapist, BCBA, somebody that can help guide, and then always with the parent agreement. At the same point with sensory input, I would just start coming up with strategies within the classroom context that can help him regulate for longer periods of time and throughout his day. So instead of leaving the classroom, it's like, well, if it is the lights that are bugging him a little bit, could he wear, even some sunglasses where people could still see his eyes and it doesn't inhibit his social abilities? Could he have little earbuds during times where he's working independently that could be either white noise or something that wouldn't be too distracting? And all of this would need to be consulted, obviously, by people that are conducting assessments and specialists in those areas. At the same point, I do those things for myself and I'm sure you guys do too. It's like when you start to get overwhelmed and stressed, you have your strategy. So we need to start building this individual's strategies for being able to cope and deal with input from their environment. And I'm guessing this mom might even have strategies for when they go into crowds or when they go into a Target on a Saturday. And so talking and sharing those tools and then making them more specific to the classroom environment.
Boy, I really love that answer, Theresa. Going back to the mom, and I'm thank you for having empathy for the mom, because I do too. I was always of the mindset of don't take him out of class, and a lot of times schools, that's their first go-to. Well, let's pull them out, and yet they're the people who are constantly saying you can't even bring a lunch in the morning because we're in instruction time and we're not interrupting instruction time, but then they're all too happy to take our kids out. So I appreciate that mom's position, and I love that you appreciated her position too. And I love your advice of telling her, go back to the mom and say what works for you. I also got to say, I love this teacher that it's the end of the school year, and a lot of teachers are checking out now and going, well, we're almost done, we'll just limp along. But I love that this teacher is still looking for answers at this point in the game and that they came to us. So that's a wonderful thing. Theresa, you are the mothership. We so have enjoyed having you be here with us, and you got to come back, okay?
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're super busy. We'll see you soon. Thank you, Theresa.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
All right, you guys, we've got a bunch of questions that have come in on YouTube, and we're going to start answering as many of those as I can when we come back. And we still have time for our mindfulness moment. And I got to tell you where I was on Thursday and Friday of last week, the conference that I was at. So you're not going to believe it. It was super awesome. So stick with us. We're going to be back after these messages.
Hi, Lisa Ackerman back with Talk of Facts. Questions, real life questions and answers for the autism journey. Oh, are you ready for this one? Talk to me about puberty. So what I would recommend is first and foremost is the kids that have done the therapeutics, the medical, and the dietary allergen removal interventions tend to have an easier time at puberty. Seizures are really common for children on the spectrum, more than neurotypical populations, and they're especially most common right at or about puberty time. So it's extremely important, even if you have a 10-year-old, that you've already done an EEG, that you consider before they go through puberty to get a second EEG done. Just because you have one clean EEG with no abnormal brain activity or seizure activity, you need to do another one prior to puberty. That's one of the most common calls we get with teens on the spectrum, is they are often experiencing a seizure for what their family thinks is the first time. And the third thing is you're gonna have a teenager, so you're really gonna have to kick it up a notch on those life skills, social skills, and getting your kid ready to be that teenager they need to be. So if you're doing that baby thing, and I know you are, where you're maybe making their lunches or helping them with laundry, we need to start bouncing some chores over to those kids. And we also need to increase social environments where they can be successful. So think about it. We've got 3 really important things that we need to look at. Puberty is a very serious issue, and we take it very seriously. So make sure you have all of your therapeutics, medical, and dietary interventions in place. Consider to do another 24-hour EEG with your physician prior to puberty. And the third most important thing, get ready to raise the bar. Your job is to really get them ready for life. And I know you can do it.
Hello, and welcome back. We've got questions that have come in on YouTube channel, and so I'm trying to see which ones connect with, I love Amanda Bright says, discrete trial teaching, whoop, whoop. And I don't know whether that's sarcastic or not, Amanda. I mean, I personally, now at this point in my life that I understand what DTT is and that it's step 1 of a 362 step process where someone can learn anything, I am whoop whoop on the discrete trial teaching too. But in the early days when I would watch the touch car thing and I would be like, oh no, like what on earth is that? I would say to my team, we want to go to college. We want him to go to college. We're never going to get there on touch car, right? But you know what? The truth is we are getting to college with touch car being step 1, because my son is 2 years away from going to college, and we're looking at college. We looked at Harvard a couple of weeks ago. Touch car. I got your touch car. It works. Do you know what I'm saying? Okay, then Marie says, I'm here looking for help. I think I missed the first part of here it is. Okay, watching here for the first time. I have a 19-year-old autism son. I'm changing his diet, seeing results. It's coming to me piecemeal here. I'm here looking for help for him. He does not speak, he only whispers. He has behavior problems too, and thanks for your help. Well, Marie, welcome. We're so happy that you're here, and I hope that you're gonna find a lot of different things here, and we've got a lot of different videos. But let me just jump in and say that at 19, it's great that you're here, because a lot of times people go, oh, well, 19, there's not a lot that we can do, and that's just not true. There's a whole lot that you can do. And it's very interesting. We have a regular viewer that has issues that her daughter talks too loud. And we see that, modulating your voice, some kids, there's a lesson in skills about prosody, because some skills just flatline talk. They're like the Ben Stein, where they talk about things and they don't, and there's no, up and down. So there's skills for autism. So that's one of the things that I'm going to recommend to you. But actually, Marie, I want you to go to where it says skills living. We just had a commercial a little while ago that showed, it was a cartoon, and maybe Traven will have you play it again after this segment so that you can see it and be like, oh, that's the thing she's talking about. So Skills is this wonderful online tool that kind of gives you the backpack that you need for everything having to do with behavior and autism. So I was saying before that it has a behavior intervention plan, that if you're and in this case an adult, your adult child is engaging in a behavior that is making it difficult for them to have a productive life, and it's making it difficult for you to interact with them. You say this, we call that a challenging behavior. It's presenting challenges, right? So what you want to do is figure out what the function of that behavior is. What's the paycheck that they're getting out of it? For instance, as simple as our kids who do this, you know, it makes my heart bleed that people at any point would ever say to somebody, stop doing that, because this accomplishes something, and it accomplishes something different for everybody. For some people, this is a sensory thing that makes them calmer. That if you do this long enough, you can see colors, you guys. I mean, check it out. It's not the most like horrible thing in the world. You can see why, oh, that's why somebody would do that. For other people, it's that they have this bubbly feeling, they're so happy, and so they, you know, they kind of flap and they do it here, and it's their way of saying, that makes me happy. It's the same as, you know, when you and I go, oh, or, you know, everybody has their way, right? So it's an expression of happiness. For other people, it's like getting rid of nervous energy, you know? So different things for different people. We want to figure out what it is what is the paycheck that the person is getting for doing this particular behavior. If they're screaming at you, what is the paycheck that they're getting for screaming? And we know that there's 4 usual suspects when it's a challenging behavior. We know that attention is a big, big reason why people do things. All people, not just people on the spectrum, right? And remember that where it's confusing with attention is when you need attention, you need attention. It doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. Because people go, no, it's not good attention because they're getting punished for it. No. Attention is attention is attention, right? So that's a big one. Another one is getting to escape something. That somebody will do something because something is happening that they need to escape from. And it's not a question of like, can I do this or not? I need to escape from this. Then, oh my gosh, we're already almost out of time. Then the fourth one is getting access to someone or something. If I need my mom and I need my mom right now, what am I willing to do so that I can get mom? Am I willing to bust through a door? You know, some people are. And sometimes it's an object, sometimes it's food, sometimes it's a person, but it's getting access to something that they need, right? And then the last one, which is the most difficult one, but we see a lot of in the autism spectrum, is it's called automatically reinforcing. There's something on the inside that makes this thing have a paycheck. So we see kids that hit themselves in the head and we go, what is that? That looks horrible. I don't want that to happen. But for some kids, this helps, you know, if I have a pain here, it stops the pain in my gut. Or I have a headache, and if you've ever had a headache and hit yourself, there's the headache goes away for a millisecond, so you're actually getting away from the headache, you know? So the first thing that you want to do is look at it from that function of behavior, and what is the behavior, what's the function of the behavior, what's the paycheck? Then if you go into skills, there's actually the CIFA that we were talking about, which is the Card Indirect Functional Assessment. You answer a bunch of questions and it tells you, here's what we think the function of this behavior is. Then you move over to the Behavior Intervention Plan Builder. It says, okay, we think that the function of the behavior is attention with an element of automatic reinforcement, because it can be more than one. It could be all 4, right? And so you go over to the behavior intervention plan and it will tell you that you need a strategy to prevent the behavior from happening. That's called the antecedent modification. You need a replacement behavior, something that gives the same paycheck but is better for everyone. So if, my paycheck is that I'm making my headache stop, maybe a Tylenol. I know not everybody's into Tylenol, but maybe some sort of pain medication would also, help to prevent this from happening. So antecedent is the prevention, and replacement behavior, giving somebody the ability to communicate either with an icon and saying, I have a headache, or punch it out on a device that says, my head hurts, right? And then we have a consequence strategy in place so that we know what to do so that we don't give it a paycheck. If they're hitting their head, we don't give them lemonade and go, it's going to be okay, because now I'm going to hit my head to get the lemonade. You see what I'm saying? So Skills can help you with all of that. I really encourage you to go to Skills. There's a 14-day free trial. And check it out. Just make sure that if you don't want to continue paying for it, you cancel it before the 15th day. And I know you said that you were looking, was it you or somebody else who said that they were looking for diet information? So there are so many different diets for autism, but I tell people usually the first best thing that I've learned from experts is get their diet as clean and healthy as possible. As few pesticides, as few artificial colors and flavors, and as low sugar as you can get, and have them still be happy. There are lots of other alternatives. Once you've done that, see how they are. The next thing that I tell people to eliminate, because, and I know I'm going to say that it's relatively easy, and you're going to go, it's not, but it's easier than all the other things. Getting rid of gluten and dairy, and a lot of families get rid of soy at the same time. Then, you'll start to see patterns with things, but we got rid of for a while phenols, which are things like apples and raisins and tomatoes and all the nightshades. So, lots of different diets. Some people do better on a low oxalate, not others. But I say start with as organic as you possibly can, with no artificial flavors or colors. Get the sugar out. Get it as healthy as possible. Then try the gluten-free, casein-free, and see where you are. When you see them craving a specific food, that food is probably the problem. Something in that food is creating a problem. Sometimes it's yeast. Lots of things to look at with that, and we've done lots of shows on that. But I want to go back to the speaking thing. Okay, so a lot of times kids have trouble seeing themselves outside of themselves, perspective taking, right? One of the greatest things you can do is go to the hardware store and get just a little piece of PVC pipe with one elbow at the top and one elbow at the bottom. You can buy the little connector pieces. It'll probably cost you $3 or $4. So it makes like a little telephone that's open on one end and open on the other, and have them talk into it. What it does, when they're talking, it comes up through to their ear and they can hear their volume. I've seen OTs use that, and sometimes that is the quick fix. The other thing you can do is get out your camera or your phone or whatever, and video yourself talking to them and them talking, and then play it back for them. And talk to them about, see how mommy is talking louder and you're talking softer. Try to match me. Let's see can you talk as loud as I can, but get the little phone out so they can hear, because often they can't hear themselves. I would for sure talk to your team though. You are qualified for ABA services regardless of the fact that your son is 19. A good ABA team will work with you on all of these things and use Skills. We've got 1 minute left. I wanted to address that because I wanted to welcome you here, and keep writing in your questions and we'll help you as much as we possibly can. But I do think starting ABA is good. So last Thursday and Friday, I'm just going to tell you guys this briefly. I was at a conference with our old friends, Dr. Adele Nadowski and Dr. Jonathan Tarbox, and the conference was for ACT, Acceptance, Commitment, Therapy. And that's something we've talked about before on the show. It's all about mindfulness. I'm not going to have time to get into it right now, but maybe on the show a little bit later on this week, we will get a little bit more next week. We'll get into it. We're out of time. Tomorrow, great show. Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Great guests. an incredible mom and her son, you know, talked with his hands and turned it into a series of children's books. You're not going to want to miss it, so check that out tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.